Erling Haaland has been devastating in the early days of his City career. Before his arrival in Manchester, there was much talk about him not fitting City's system, that he'd need time to adapt, that the Premier League would be too much for him, that he'd flop. Well, clearly none of that's happened. And now the narrative is how many goals will he score, what records will he break, how many more goals will City score with him in their team. But there still remains one criticism about the Haaland signing. Haaland is injury prone. He won't get enough games at City to make a difference due to an inevitable injury. And once that injury happens, City will suffer. And we perhaps saw a glimpse of that when City fielded a non-Haaland City team against Copenhagen in the Champions League. Granted, Haaland was on the bench, but Guardiola did explain afterwards that Haaland didn't properly recover from his previous game. He was exhausted and needed rest. So the question therefore becomes, is Haaland injury prone? Using Transfermarkt as our injury record source, we can catalogue Haaland's injury journey throughout his club career and assess whether he's prone to missing games or not. We recently hit 5k on the channel, by the way. Thank you guys so much. If you do enjoy football videos, then you'll enjoy this channel. Please make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you are new. Let's get into the data, which starts when Haaland joined Molde, his first top flight team. He spent 2 seasons at Molde with no injuries reported in his first season. In his second season, at the age of 18, he suffered a ligament injury and was out for 21 days, missing 3 games. But that's it for Molde. No other injuries to report. Certainly nothing to suggest that Haaland is injury prone yet, and he'd end up scoring 20 goals in 50 games across those 2 years. Haaland then spent a very brief spell in Austria at RB Salzburg. He joined them in January 2019 before making his Dortmund debut in January 2020. In this period, Haaland was out for 36 days collectively, missing 5 games in total. And 5 does seem like a lot considering he only played 27 times for Salzburg, scoring 29 goals by the way. So what were his injuries at Salzburg? He was ill. He had a bruise, he had knee problems, and he had an abdominal muscle injury. But being ill isn't necessarily an injury, and that accounts for 2 missed games for Haaland. So again, there's nothing at Salzburg to suggest he's injury prone. It's the time at Dortmund that comes under the most scrutiny in terms of Haaland's injury record. He joined at the age of 19 and spent 2.5 years in Germany. So let's look at it season by season. In the 2019-20 season, he was injury-free from January to June, where he missed 2 games due to knee problems and was out for 11 days. And that's it for his first season at Dortmund. The entire 19-20 season, which includes his time at Salzburg, that's 7 games missed and 47 days out total. And that includes those 2 games missed and those 7 days missed due to illness. He made 18 appearances and scored 16 goals in that first half season at Dortmund. In his second season at Dortmund, we do start to see what may be a recurring issue. In the 2020-21 season, Haaland again suffers with knee problems. He's out for 4 days and ends up missing 1 game. Now that is the 3rd time knee problems have been an issue for Haaland, but as long as it doesn't crop up again, I think we can probably rule it out as it being demonstrative of Haaland is an injury-prone player. He only counts for 4 games and 26 days missed after all. Continuing with the 2020-21 season, in addition to those knee problems, Haaland suffered a minor knock, muscular problems, and also his most severe injury up until now, a torn muscle fiber. And that tear would keep Haaland out for 28 days, or 7 games collectively. In total, for 2020-21, Haaland suffered 4 injuries, was out for 40 days, and missed 10 games. Once again, these numbers aren't especially worrying. The knee problems, muscular problems, and minor knock only add up to 3 games missed. The only worry is that torn muscle fiber, but he was fit for 5 months after recovering from that injury, so it's not as if the injury was recurring. He played 41 times that season, his record for appearances so far, also scoring 41 goals. His number of appearances and minutes that season illustrates it wasn't an injury-prone season. But his final season at Dortmund is where most of the injury-prone rhetoric comes from, because he missed crucial Champions League games as Dortmund finished 3rd in their group and was unavailable as Norway failed to qualify for the World Cup. Now what's interesting is Haaland actually suffered less injuries in this season, but they were more serious in nature. He suffered from muscular problems, missed 3 games, and was out from the 23rd of September to the 11th of October. He then played 2 matches in the following 8 days, one on the 16th and the other 3 days later on the 19th. 2 days later, on the 21st of October, just 10 days after returning from injury, Haaland developed problems with his hip flexor and ended up missing 7 games over 38 days. He returned on the 25th of November, only to develop muscular problems 2 months later, and was then out for 42 days, missing 6 games. In total, for the 21-22 season, Haaland was out for 95 days, missing 16 games. He still made a decent number of appearances that season, 30 in fact, scoring 29 goals, which isn't too bad for an injury-hit season. Without a doubt, this was his worst season in respect of injury. I do think it is fair to say Haaland wasn't helped by being rushed back from injury. In that 10-day gap between the recovery of his first injury and then suffering his second injury, he played the full 90 minutes twice, and I'm sure that contributed significantly to Haaland's injury issues. He's such a key player for Dortmund, they had to try to rush him back and get him back to full fitness. But regardless, 21-22 was indeed a bad season for Haaland in respect of injury. So, is Haaland injury prone? Based on his injury record, Not in the slightest. There aren't significant recurring injuries. Aside from his first ever top flight season at the age of 18, he's made at least 30 appearances in every single season so far. And he made 40 appearances or more in 2 of his seasons before he turned 21. Realistically, there's only been 1 season where he's been detrimentally impacted by injury, and that was his last season with Dortmund. And even then, he still made 30 appearances. From 17-18 to present, he's missed 36 games, has been out for 203 days collectively due to injury, and his biggest single absence was 42 days. Players who are genuinely injury prone have missed twice that much since 17-18. Callum Wilson's been out for 382 days with injury. That doesn't even include his 2 cruciate ligament injuries. That's 53 games missed total. For Neymar, it's 108 games and 602 days. For Ousmane Dembele, it's 102 games and 695 days. Haaland's injury numbers aren't close to the injury-prone conversation, and they're actually better than players like Karim Benzema, who I've never heard described as injury-prone. For Benzema, it's 46 games and 237 days. And Harry Kane's injury record is also far worse than Haaland's, but Kane still seems to be scoring plenty of goals season after season. And that's not to say Haaland's injury record is brilliant. There are some players like Mo Salah or Cristiano Ronaldo who just never seem to get injured ever. But there's no evidence at this stage to suggest Haaland is injury prone. Now maybe that'll change. Maybe Haaland will go on to become an injury prone player. But based on his injury history, comparing it to other players, it's clear that Haaland currently isn't injury prone. And I assume this injury prone narrative is just clutching at straws in the hope that he won't succeed at City, in the same way that Spanish media outlets are already trying to connect Haaland with a move to Real Madrid or Barcelona. Finally, I think it's also fair to say, no offense to Dortmund, but I think it's fair to say that Man City probably have better medical facilities and better doctors, etc. at Manchester City than Dortmund have had at Dortmund. So it's more likely that Haaland's going to be looked after in a better way at City than Dortmund. Not that he was mistreated at Dortmund, but you get what I mean. Also, Dortmund are not the same as City in that clearly City are able to perform without Haaland. They performed without a striker for 2 years, whilst Dortmund may be a bit more reliant on him, therefore maybe more keen to try to rush him back if he does injure himself, whilst Guardiola knows he can win games without a striker, so therefore he has the freedom to rest him if Haaland does pick up a knock or is not able to recover fully as he might want to. That's the video, guys. Really hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know what your thoughts are on Erling Haaland and his injury situation. Do you think he will go on to develop future injuries, or do you think it's like a weird sort of rival fan narrative of trying to say he's injury prone because there's nothing else you can really say about Haaland? He obviously hasn't flopped. It's sort of like the last thing to clutch at. It's like the final straw that people can clutch at. Let me know what you think. If you got something out of the video, then do please consider supporting me directly through Patreon. The link is in every single YouTube video description. It does really help. We also have YouTube memberships on the channel as well, so if you want a little bit more out of the channel, you can become a YouTube member as well. You can see all the perks if you try to sign up. Hope you enjoy the video. I'll see you next time.